Tonight, we'll step into the shadows of history and explore 8 fascinating puzzles scattered across the American landscape. From lost colonies to puzzling earthworks, from mysterious stone carvings to fossil beds that don't seem to make sense. These are the riddles that keep researchers up at night. Each place we'll visit holds secrets that challenge everything we think we know about ancient cultures in North America. These aren't just old tales or forgotten folklore. They are real places you can go and see for yourself. Chapter 1. The Utah Monolith. A modern mystery in an ancient land. In November 2020, a helicopter crew, out counting wildlife, spotted something that didn't belong there. Rising from the red sandstone floor of Lockhart Basin in southeastern Utah stood a perfectly smooth, shiny metal pillar about 10 to 12 feet tall. It shone like a mirror against the ancient canyon walls, creating one of the most stunning contrasts you could imagine between the modern world and timeless nature. The monolith, as it soon came to be called, was made of what looked like stainless steel, riveted together with surprising accuracy. It wasn't just pushed into the ground. Whoever put it there had cut a neat, triangle-shaped section out of the sandstone and placed the object so perfectly that it seemed to grow right out of the rock. The work was flawless, suggesting careful planning, skill, and real effort. What made this discovery truly remarkable was its location. Lockhart Basin sits in one of the most isolated parts of Utah, reachable only by rugged four-wheel drive vehicles or long hikes over rough ground. There are no roads that could handle the heavy equipment normally needed to haul and set up such a structure. Yet, there it stood, as if it had appeared out of thin air. The find quickly grabbed attention around the world. Within days, the location spread across social media, and adventure seekers started making trips to see the mysterious object for themselves. The site became a magnet for photographers, conspiracy fans, and curious travelers from everywhere. The simple beauty of the monolith against Utah's famous red rock landscape created pictures that looked almost otherworldly. But just as quickly as it had been found, the monolith disappeared. On the night of November 27, 2020, less than 2 weeks after its discovery, unknown people took it apart and hauled it away. Security camera footage later showed 4 men working under cover of darkness, carefully taking down the structure and carrying off the pieces. The removal was just as mysterious as the installation. Those responsible left no clues about who they were, and despite all the talk and investigation, no one has ever stepped forward to claim they made it or took it away. This has led to plenty of theories about where it came from and why it was there. Some people think the monolith was meant as an art piece, maybe inspired by the strange black monoliths from Stanley Kubrick's film 2001, A Space Odyssey. The careful construction and the dramatic way it was placed and then removed would fit with that idea. Others suggest it was a social experiment, meant to see how fast news travels in today's connected world, and how people react to things they can't explain. More down-to-earth theories focus on how it was done. Putting up a structure like that in such a remote spot would have taken careful planning, special gear, and close knowledge of the area. This points to the builders having plenty of experience with Utah's backcountry and access to tools most people don't have. Some guess it could have been the work of local artists or outdoors people who knew the region well. The timing of when the monolith showed up and when it was found also raises questions. Looking at satellite images suggests the object might have been there for several years before anyone noticed it, meaning it had been sitting quietly in the desert, unknown to the world, until that helicopter crew happened to see it during a regular flight. The world's fascination with the Utah monolith led to many copycat structures popping up around the globe, from Romania to California to the Isle of Wight. But none of them caught people's attention quite like the first one. Maybe because none of them had the same mix of mystery, remoteness, and flawless execution. What makes this modern puzzle so interesting is how it shows that even in our time of satellites, watching from above and constant global connection, it's still possible for something to appear and vanish without leaving clear answers behind. The monolith's short time in the spotlight raised questions about art, mystery, and human nature itself. Why are we so drawn to things we can't explain? What does our reaction to the unknown say about us? The spot where the monolith stood has gone back to its natural state, with only faint marks in the sandstone left to show anything was ever there. People still make the tough trip to see the location, drawn by the story. Even though the object itself is gone, the empty space has become almost as fascinating as the monolith was, proof that mystery can turn even the most ordinary places into destinations. The Utah monolith represents a one-of-a-kind mystery, one that played out in real time in the modern age, seen and talked about by millions, yet still leaving us with the same basic questions that ancient puzzles raise. Who made it? Why? And maybe most importantly, what does it mean that, in a time when we think we know everything, some secrets stay perfectly hidden? Chapter 2. False Kiva, the hidden circle of stone. Deep within the twisting canyons of Canyonlands National Park lies one of Utah's most closely guarded secrets, tucked inside a natural cave alcove. Reachable only by a tough scramble over slick rock and through narrow passages, sits a perfect circle of stacked sandstone blocks. This structure, known as False Kiva, is one of the most puzzling archaeological features in the American Southwest. The name itself tells a story of mystery and confusion. When researchers first studied the structure, they thought it might be a kiva, the round ceremonial rooms traditionally built by ancestral Pueblo people. But a closer look showed major differences from typical kivas. Real kivas are usually built partly underground with specific features like fire pits, air shafts, and symbolic details that this structure doesn't have. So it got called False Kiva. Even so, what this place really was, and why it was built, remain complete unknown. The structure is made of carefully placed sandstone blocks, arranged in a perfect circle, inside a natural cave alcove, high above the canyon floor. The stonework clearly shows it was built by human hands, with blocks fitted together in a way that shows planning and skill. The circle is about 8 feet across and sits on a natural sandstone shelf that gives a wide view of the canyon system around it. What makes False Kiva especially mysterious is how isolated it is and how there are no artifacts or other structures nearby. Most ancestral Pueblo sites are part of bigger settlements or have signs of daily life, like food scraps, tool making, or storage areas. False Kiva stands alone, with no trash heaps, no broken pottery, no grinding stones, and no other clues that people lived here or used it regularly. The building itself raises plenty of questions. The people who made it carefully picked out and carried stones to form the circle, which would have taken a lot of work given how remote this spot is. Putting it inside the cave alcove means they chose this place on purpose, for reasons we can only guess at. The natural sound inside the alcove is interesting, and the opening frames certain views of the sky and distant canyon walls. There are several ideas about what False Kiva was for, though none can be proven for sure. One possibility is that it was used for watching the stars. The opening of the alcove could have worked like a natural window for keeping track of the sun, moon, or stars, with a stone circle marking a special spot for doing that. The way it's placed might line up with certain seasonal events, though detailed studies haven't shown anything definite. Another idea is that it had some ceremonial use, though not like regular Kiva ceremonies. The remote spot and dramatic setting could have made it a good place for vision quests, personal spiritual practices, or initiation rites that needed privacy and distance from everyday community life. The way sound carries in there might have made chanting, singing, or other rituals feel more powerful. Some researchers think it might have had a practical use, maybe as the base for a temporary shelter, or as a work area for tasks that needed the special features of this spot. But without any artifacts nearby, it's hard to back up those ideas. The way water acts around the structure is also interesting. During certain weather, water collects in natural pools near the site, and the alcove offers shelter from storms. That could have made it a useful temporary stop or resting place for people traveling through the canyon system. The circle might have been a meeting spot for times like that. False Kiva has stayed in good shape, mostly because it's so hidden and because park officials keep its exact location quiet. Unlike many archaeological sites that get damaged by visitors or vandals, False Kiva is still largely intact because getting there takes effort, planning, and respect for both the land and the history. The National Park Service doesn't give out directions to the site and actively discourages people from trying to find it. This policy protects the structure but also adds to its mystery. The fact that False Kiva is hidden means that finding it takes the same kind of exploring and discovery that the original builders must have felt when they first came to this place. People who do find False Kiva often say it's a deeply moving experience. The tough trip to get there, the stunning natural setting, and the strange man-made circle all come together to create a strong sense of connection to the past. Sitting inside the stone circle, surrounded by the deep silence of the canyon country, visitors often say they feel a powerful sense of wonder about the people who made this place. When False Kiva was built is another puzzle. It looks like it could be ancestral Pueblo stonework from roughly 600 to 1300 CE. But there's no way to date it directly, since there are no artifacts or organic material that can be tested. The structure could be from the same time as the main ancestral Pueblo settlements in the area, or it could be much older or younger. Recent thinking among archaeologists has moved away from trying to fit False Kiva into standard categories. Instead, researchers are more likely to see it as something unique that might not match any normal classification. This way of looking at it leaves room for the possibility that False Kiva represents a type of site or activity we just haven't seen anywhere else or don't fully understand yet. The mystery of False Kiva really comes down to bigger questions about how we understand archaeological sites and make sense of ancient cultures. Sometimes the most interesting sites are the ones that don't fit what we expect, forcing us to admit that our knowledge has limits and that human creativity and spiritual expression throughout history are richer and more varied than we can imagine. Chapter 3. Goblin Valley. Where nature meets ancient art. In south-central Utah lies one of the most strange and striking landscapes in North America, a place where natural forces have shaped an army of stone figures that almost seem alive. Goblin Valley State Park protects thousands of mushroom-shaped rock formations called hoodoos, known locally as goblins, that rise from the valley floor like silent watchers from another world. As if that weren't enough, these natural wonders share their home with human-made mysteries in the form of ancient rock art that adds even more layers of intrigue to an already fascinating place. The goblin formations themselves came from millions of years of geological activity. They formed from entrada sandstone, a rock layer laid down during the Jurassic period, about 170 million years ago, when this area was covered by a huge desert. Over time, wind and water wore away the sandstone into the strange shapes we see today. The process worked through uneven erosion, where harder caprock protected the softer rock underneath, creating the mushroom shapes that give the formations their character. What makes Goblin Valley so striking is just how many of these formations there are and how varied they look. The valley holds thousands of individual goblins, each with its own unique shape and personality. Some look like faces or people, others suggest animals or abstract sculptures. The red and orange sandstone glows brightly as the light changes throughout the day, creating an ever-changing gallery of natural art that has amazed visitors since explorers first found it in the 1920s. But the natural wonders of Goblin Valley are only part of the story. Scattered across the region, both inside the state park and in the lands around it, ancient people left their marks in the form of petroglyphs and pictographs. These rock art panels add a human touch to the surreal landscape, creating a conversation between natural and cultural forces that stretches back thousands of years. The rock art in near Goblin Valley comes from different time periods and cultural traditions. Some panels show the distinct style of the Fremont people, who lived in this region from about 300 to 1300 CE. Fremont rock art often features human-like figures with fancy headdresses, geometric designs, and animal shapes that reflect their unique way of seeing the world. Other panels might have been made by later Ute people who traveled through this area in more recent centuries. The mix of strange natural shapes and ancient human art creates a feeling unlike anywhere else. Walking through Goblin Valley feels like moving through a place where the lines between natural and supernatural, between geological time and human time, starts to blur. The ancient artists who made rock art here were responding to the same sense of wonder and mystery that modern visitors feel. Some of the rock art seems to use the natural formations as part of its design. Petroglyphs were carved in spots where they interact visually with the goblin formations, suggesting that the ancient artists were aware of how their work would relate to the dramatic geological setting. This blending of art and landscape shows a deep understanding of visual design and harmony with nature. The images in the Goblin Valley area rock art include common Fremont subjects like human-like figures, bighorn sheep, geometric patterns, and mysterious symbols whose meanings are lost to time. But the unique setting may have shaped the specific character of the art made here. Some researchers think the strange landscape might have had special spiritual meaning, making it a destination for vision quests or ceremonies. Keeping Goblin Valley preserved shows the tricky balance between letting people visit and protecting both natural and cultural treasures. The soft sandstone that makes the dramatic formations is also very easily damaged by touching, climbing, and other human contacts. Likewise, the rock art panels face threats from vandalism, weather, and the slow wear from many visitors. Park managers try to protect both the rock formations and the rock art, while still letting people experience the unique character of this place. Marked trails guide visitors through the most spectacular areas, while keeping more fragile or sensitive spots safe. Educational programs helped people understand both the geological forces that created the formations and the cultural meaning of the rock art. Chapter 4. Chalk Creek Hieroglyphics. Symbols without translation. High in the mountains of central Utah, deep in the forests of the Fish Lake National Forest, lies one of the state's most puzzling archaeological mysteries. In 1939, a Forest Service worker made a discovery that would shake up what experts thought they knew about rock art in the American West. Carved into a remote cliff face along Chalk Creek were symbols unlike any ever seen before in the region. Detailed markings that looked more like hieroglyphics than typical Native American petroglyphs. The discovery site sits at about 8,000 feet elevation, surrounded by aspen and pine forests and rough terrain that would have been hard to reach even for ancient people who knew how to travel in the mountains. The carvings appear on a cliff wall that gets natural shelter from the weather while still being visible to anyone passing through the narrow canyon. The location suggests the people who made them picked this spot on purpose for both practical and maybe ceremonial reasons. The symbols themselves are hard to sort into any known category. Unlike the geometric patterns, animal shapes and human figures typical of Fremont or other regional rock art styles, the Chalk Creek markings include what look like hands, human heads in profile, and various geometric symbols arranged in ways that suggest written language rather than single picture elements. Some of the carvings show skilled artistic technique, with fine detail and careful layout that point to real craftsmanship. Early attempts to understand the symbols focused on comparing them with known Native American rock art styles. But the Chalk Creek markings are quite different in style, method, and apparent organization from documented Fremont, Ute, or other regional petroglyphs. The symbols seem to be laid out in linear patterns that suggest storytelling or language structure, more like writing systems than the symbolic arrangements common in most North American rock art. Figuring out how old the Chalk Creek carvings are is tricky without artifacts or organic material that can be radiocarbon dated. Researchers have to rely on style comparisons and how weathered the rock looks to guess at their age. The symbols show different levels of weathering, which might mean they were made over a long period rather than all at once. Some look older and more worn, while others seem more recent. Several ideas try to explain where these unusual markings came from and what they mean. One possibility is that they represent an unknown or poorly documented Native American tradition, maybe linked to mountain ceremonies or vision quests that called for travel to remote high places. The high altitude setting might have had special spiritual meaning that made the hard trip to get there worthwhile. Another idea suggests the carvings could have been made by early European or American explorers, trappers, or miners who came through the area in the 1700s or 1800s. The symbols might have been a personal way of keeping records, marking territory, or just the artistic expression of people spending long stretches alone. But this idea has a hard time explaining how complex and consistent the symbol system appears to be. More out there theories have linked the carvings to various ancient writing systems, like Egyptian hieroglyphics, Phoenician scripts, or even contact with Old World civilizations before Columbus. But there's no real evidence to support such ideas, and mainstream archaeology firmly rejects them as wishful thinking without facts to back them up. The remote location of the Chalk Creek site has helped protect the carvings while also making detailed study difficult. Getting there takes a tough hike through mountain terrain, and the site gets far fewer visitors than easier-to-reach rock art locations. This isolation has kept the carvings safe from vandalism and overuse, but it has also limited chances for thorough documentation and analysis. New technology has opened up fresh possibilities for studying the Chalk Creek hieroglyphics without damaging the original carvings. Three-dimensional scanning and high-resolution photography can pick up details earlier researchers missed, while digital analysis might reveal patterns or relationships not obvious to the naked eye. Still, the site's remote location makes it hard to bring sophisticated equipment to bear on the problem. The Forest Service manages the site with a focus on preservation rather than explanation. Unlike more accessible archaeological sites, Chalk Creek gets little promotion or development, reflecting both the challenges of reaching it and the uncertainty about what the carvings mean. This approach protects the resource, but it also limits chances for public engagement and scientific study. Local stories have grown up around the Chalk Creek hieroglyphics, with various tales trying to explain where they came from and what they mean. Some stories link them to lost civilizations or ancient visitors, while others suggest they mark the spot of hidden treasure or sacred places. These tales show how people need to create stories that explain mysterious things, but they also show how unexplained archaeological sites become magnets for guesswork and legend. Chapter 5. Moonhouse. Architecture of the ancients. Perched on a sandstone ledge above a branch of the San Juan River, Moonhouse is one of the best preserved and most strangely arranged cliff dwellings in the American Southwest, built by ancestral Pueblo people during the Pueblo III period, roughly between 1050 and 1300 CE. This architectural wonder shows the careful planning and building skills of its creators while raising lasting questions about its exact purpose and internal layout. The dwelling got its striking name from the distinctive white paintings on the back wall of the main structure. These circle and crescent shapes, made with white mineral paint, look like phases of the moon, and create a powerful focal point inside the ruin. The moon symbols appear alongside other geometric designs, and may have had astronomical, ceremonial, or symbolic meaning that we can only guess at today. Moonhouse is made up of several distinct sections that suggests careful planning and specialized uses. The front part of the alcove contains what seem to be living spaces, with typical household features like fire pits, storage areas, and rooms sized for families. The building methods show the skilled stonework of ancestral Pueblo builders, with carefully shaped sandstone blocks fitted together using very little mortar. Behind these living areas lies a more puzzling section of the dwelling that has confused archaeologists for years. This back part has different architectural features, including what might be ceremonial spaces, special storage rooms, and areas with unusual details that don't fit normal patterns of ancestral Pueblo home design. The layout suggests these spaces served purposes different from ordinary living quarters. The most interesting thing about Moonhouse might be how it's organized inside and how the different functional areas relate to each other. Unlike many cliff dwellings that grew bit by bit over time as people added on, Moonhouse looks like it was designed from the start as a complete architectural complex. The way living, storage, and possibly ceremonial spaces are arranged points to a level of social organization and planning that goes beyond just providing shelter. Archaeological evidence shows that Moonhouse was lived in during a time of major cultural growth in the region. The Pueblo III period was the high point of ancestral Pueblo civilization, marked by large population centers, wide trade networks, skilled farming, and complex social structures. Moonhouse represents this cultural flowering, while also showing how people adapted to the specific environmental and social conditions of Cedar Mesa. Building Moonhouse took a lot of work and careful management of resources. The builders had to bring materials to the site, change the natural alcove to fit their architectural vision, and create living spaces that could support long-term occupation. The effort involved suggests the site had special importance beyond just being a place to live. Access to water played a key role in where Moonhouse was placed and how it was designed. Natural springs and seasonal water sources in the area would have been essential for supporting the people living there. The way the structure is positioned takes advantage of both shelter from the elements and nearness to reliable water, showing the builders' deep knowledge of local conditions. The artistic touches at Moonhouse go beyond the famous moon paintings to include various other decorative and symbolic features. Geometric designs, handprints, and other patterns appear throughout the structure, suggesting that how things looked mattered to the people living there. These artistic elements may have served social, religious, or cultural purposes that help define the identity and meaning of the community. Storage areas inside Moonhouse show evidence of the careful resource management systems that supported ancestral Pueblo communities. Granaries built into natural cracks in the rock and constructed storage rooms show signs of corn, beans, squash, and other crops that formed the basis of the local economy. How much storage space there was, and how it was organized suggests they grew more than they needed and maybe shared or traded the surplus. The connection between Moonhouse and other sites in the Cedar Mesa area shows it was part of a larger cultural landscape, not just an isolated settlement. Trade goods, similar pottery styles, and building methods linked Moonhouse to a wider network of communities that shared cultural traditions while adapting to local conditions. Looking at the bigger picture helps explain some of the site's unique features. Keeping Moonhouse preserved reflects the larger challenges facing cliff dwellings throughout the Southwest. The same natural alcove that protected the structure from weather for centuries now faces new threats from more visitors, climate change, and the slow decay that affects all old buildings. Balancing public access with preservation needs takes careful management and constant attention. The mysterious departure from Moonhouse mirrors the bigger population shifts that affected the whole Four Corners region in the late 1200s. Like many other ancestral Pueblo sites, Moonhouse seems to have been left fairly suddenly, with portable items taken away but building features and heavy storage items left behind. Why people left remains a topic of debate among researchers. Chapter 6. Dark Canyon Ruins. The Great Abandonment. In the remote wilderness of southeastern Utah, Dark Canyon cuts a deep gash through layers of geological time, creating one of the most stunning and untouched canyon systems in the American Southwest. Within this rugged landscape lies a treasure trove of archaeology that has fascinated researchers and visitors for over 100 years. A huge network of ancestral Pueblo ruins that represents one of the largest and best preserved ancient settlement areas in the region. The Dark Canyon Wilderness protects dozens of archaeological sites scattered through the canyon system and its side canyons. These sites range from small storage huts and temporary camps to large cliff dwellings and open-air pueblos that once held sizable populations. The variety and spread of sites show that Dark Canyon was a major population center during the height of ancestral Pueblo civilization, roughly from 1050 to 1300 CE. What makes Dark Canyon so special is how well organic materials and artifacts have survived here, things that usually rot away in less protected spots thanks to the dry climate and natural shelter from overhanging cliffs have preserved wooden beams, baskets, textiles, and other perishable items. They give us close-up looks at daily life 800 years ago. These organic artifacts offer insights into ancient technology, art, and cultural practices that are rarely found at other sites. The pottery found throughout Dark Canyon represents some of the finest examples of ancestral Pueblo ceramic art. The pots show the full range of Mesa Verde and Cayenta cultural traditions, with intricate geometric patterns, creative shapes, and skilled building methods. The mix of pottery styles suggests Dark Canyon was a meeting place where different cultural groups came together and shared ideas, technologies, and artistic influences. Rock art panels all through the canyon system document the symbolic and spiritual life of the ancient inhabitants. These paintings and carvings include realistic images of animals, humans, and plants alongside abstract geometric designs and mysterious symbols whose meanings are unknown. The rock art spans multiple time periods and styles, creating a visual record of how culture continued and changed over centuries of occupation. The building remains in Dark Canyon show remarkable adaptation to the harsh desert environment. The builders had deep understanding of local conditions, placing structures to take advantage of natural shelter, seasonal water sources, and defensive positions, while minimizing exposure to rough weather. The way built and natural spaces blend together creates harmony between human settlements and the landscape. Farming terraces and water control features throughout the canyon reveal the intensive growing systems that supported these populations. The ancient farmers reshaped the natural landscape to create planting areas, built small dams to slow erosion and hold soil, and developed irrigation systems to bring precious water to their crops. These changes took a lot of work and show long-term commitment to the area. Storage facilities throughout Dark Canyon point to the careful resource management systems that let large populations thrive in this challenging environment. Granaries built into cliff faces and hidden alcoves kept extra crops safe from rodents, moisture, and human raiders. How many storage structures there were suggests not just successful farming, but also social systems capable of organizing group labor and managing community resources. The way sites are spread through the canyon system shows careful land use planning that made the most of available resources while keeping defensive advantages. Larger settlements are in strategic spots that control access to water and travel routes, while smaller sites take advantage of specific microenvironments good for farming, hunting, or gathering resources. This settlement pattern shows deep understanding of how the landscape works. Trade goods found in Dark Canyon sites connect the ancient inhabitants to far-reaching exchange networks that stretched across the southwest and beyond. Turquoise, seashells, unusual stones, and other materials from far away show they took part in regional trade that moved goods, ideas, and cultural influences over vast distances. These trade connections helped support local populations while bringing in new technologies and cultural elements. The sudden emptying of Dark Canyon in the late 1200s matches the bigger population collapse that hit the whole Four Corners region at that time. Archaeological evidence suggests people left fairly quickly and completely, with entire communities walking away from their homes and belongings as they moved to new areas. Why this mass migration happened remains one of the great puzzles of southwestern archaeology. Environmental factors probably played a part in why Dark Canyon was abandoned. Studies of tree rings show severe drought in the late 1200s that would have stressed farming and reduced how many people the land could support. But these communities had survived droughts before, which suggests that environmental pressure alone can't explain why such a successful and long-established population center was completely abandoned. Social and political factors may have been just as important in the decision to leave. Signs of more conflict in the late Pueblo III period, like defensive building and burned structures, suggest growing social tensions that may have made staying there impossible. Leaving Dark Canyon might have been a strategic move to more defensible or politically stable areas. Chapter 7. Cave Towers. Sentinels of Stone. Rising from the rimrock of Cedar Mesa's twisting canyons stand puzzling stone towers that have mystified archaeologists and visitors for over a century. These structures, dating to about 1250 CE during the late Pueblo III period, sit in isolated spots on canyon rims with no nearby homes or obvious practical uses. Their remote locations, distinctive design, and mysterious purpose have made them some of the most intriguing archaeological features in the American Southwest. The towers share common building features that set them apart from typical ancestral Pueblo structures. Made from carefully shaped sandstone blocks using skilled stonework, they rise between 15 and 25 feet high, with fairly narrow bases. Building them took real skill and effort, especially given their remote locations that would have made bringing materials and doing construction harder. Each tower sits in a strategic spot that commands wide views of the surrounding landscape. From these high perches, observers could watch huge areas of canyon country, including main travel routes, water sources, and other towers in the network. The sightlines between towers suggest they might have worked as part of a communication system, letting messages be sent over long distances through smoke signals, flashes of sunlight, or other visual methods. The inside design of the towers varies, but most have multiple levels connected by interior passages or handholds carved into the stone walls. Some have small rooms that might have been for storage or temporary shelter, while others seem designed mainly as lookout platforms. The narrow doorways and defensive positioning suggest safety was an important factor in how they were built. The dating of the cave towers puts them during a time of major social and environmental stress in the ancestral Pueblo world. The late 1200s saw more conflict, competition for resources, and eventually the abandonment of the whole Four Corners region. The towers might have been a response to these difficult conditions, serving as watchtowers, communication points, or defensive positions during a time of growing uncertainty. Astronomical theories suggest the towers were used for watching the sky. Their high positions and carefully aimed openings could have been ideal for tracking the sun, moon, and stars for calendars or ceremonies. Some researchers have found possible alignments with important astronomical events, though solid proof of an astronomical purpose is still lacking. The religious or ceremonial interpretation suggests the towers had spiritual functions related to skywatching, prayer, or rituals that needed height and separation from daily life. The commanding views and distance from living areas would have created suitable conditions for vision quests, ceremonial observations, or other religious practices that required privacy and connection to the wider landscape. More practical theories focus on the tower's possible role in managing resources and controlling territory. Their positions along main travel routes and near important water sources suggest they might have served as checkpoints or lookout posts that let communities watch and control access to vital resources. This idea fits with evidence of growing competition and conflict during the late Pueblo III period. How the cave towers were built raises fascinating questions about how ancient people organized, work, and managed resources. Putting up these structures meant moving materials to remote rimrock locations, often over rough terrain and long distances from where the stone came from. The effort involved suggests either major investment by the whole community or the work of specialized building groups with particular skills and duties. Archaeological evidence from the tower sites includes few artifacts that give clear clues about what went on there. The lack of household trash, cooking areas, or living materials supports theories that the towers served special purposes rather than being homes. But without clear signs of use, interpretation is harder and more speculative. How the cave towers relate to other settlements in the Cedar Mesa region during their time is unclear. While no large residential sites are right next to the towers, the wider landscape has many cliff dwellings and pueblos from the same period. The towers might have served the whole community network rather than individual settlements. working as shared infrastructure for communication, defense, or ceremony. Environmental factors may have affected both the building and eventual abandonment of the cave towers. The late 1200s drought that affected the whole southwest would have hurt farming and increased competition for water. The towers might have been adaptive responses to environmental challenges, serving as parts of resource management or conflict resolution systems. How well the cave towers have survived varies a lot, depending on their exact locations and exposure to weather. Some are still nearly complete, with walls reaching their original heights, while others have decayed badly from wind, water, and the slow effects of time. The different states of preservation give clues about both ancient building methods and ongoing conservation challenges. Chapter 8. Escalante, Petrified Forest. The Curse of Stonewood. In the high desert country of south-central Utah lies one of the most amazing collections of petrified wood in North America. Proof of ancient forests that grew here millions of years ago when this landscape was very different from today. But the Escalante Petrified Forest holds more than geological wonders. It has become the center of one of the most lasting and well-documented cursed legends in the American West. A modern mystery that blends natural science with human psychology and cultural folklore. The petrified wood of the Escalante region formed about 135 to 155 million years ago during the late Jurassic period, when this area had a warm, wet climate that supported huge forests of conifers, ferns, and other prehistoric plants. Regular floods buried fallen trees in mud and volcanic ash, creating the conditions needed for petrification. Over millions of years, minerals slowly replaced the organic material while keeping the detailed cell structure of the original wood. What makes the Escalante deposits so special is how good the petrified specimens are and how varied they look. The fossilized wood shows brilliant colors ranging from deep reds and oranges to yellows, purples, and blues, created by different minerals during the petrification process. Iron oxides produce reds and yellows, while manganese creates purples and blues. The preservation is so detailed that growth, rings, bark patterns, and even insect holes are still clearly visible. The scientific value of the Escalante Petrified Forest goes beyond its beauty to provide important clues about ancient climates, ecosystems, and evolution. The fossilized wood represents plant species that lived during the age of dinosaurs, offering glimpses of land environments that existed long before humans appeared on Earth. The specimens help paleontologists piece together ancient forest communities and understand how plants responded to changing environmental conditions. But it's the modern legend of the Escalante curse that has caught the public's imagination and created one of Utah's most lasting mysteries. According to widespread belief, visitors who take pieces of petrified wood from the area will have a run of bad luck that continues until they bring the stolen specimens back. This curse has produced thousands of documented cases of people mailing back pilfered pieces, along with letters describing the misfortunes they blame on their theft. The curse legend seems to have started in the mid-1900s, as more people visited the area, and collecting became a real conservation problem. Park rangers and local residents began promoting the curse story as a way to discourage theft and protect the limited supply of petrified wood. But what began as a conservation tactic has grown into a self-sustaining cultural phenomenon that still affects visitor behavior decades later. The documentation of curse-related incidents comes mainly from the steady stream of packages sent to Escalante State Park containing returned petrified wood specimens. These packages often include detailed letters from senders describing the various troubles they experienced after taking the wood, from car crashes and job losses to relationship problems and health issues. The consistency and volume of these reports have made the Escalante curse one of the best documented examples of modern folklore in action. Psychological explanations for the curse phenomenon focus on ideas like guilt, confirmation bias, and the power of suggestion. People who take petrified wood, even though they know about the curse, may pay more attention to bad things that happen in their lives, blaming normal misfortunes on supernatural causes. The act of stealing itself may create unconscious guilt that affects behavior and perception in ways that seem to prove the curse is real. The curse legend has created an interesting feedback loop that reinforces itself through social and psychological mechanisms. As more people hear about others' experiences with the curse, the story gains credibility and emotional power. Those who have misfortunes after taking petrified wood are more likely to remember and report incidents that seem to confirm the curse while ignoring good things that contradict it. From a conservation standpoint, the curse legend has worked remarkably well at protecting the petrified wood resource. While scientific arguments about preservation and educational value may not stop casual collectors, fear of supernatural punishment provides a powerful psychological deterrent. The curse has essentially created a cultural protection system that adds to legal restrictions and physical barriers. The letters and packages returned to Escalante State Park offer fascinating glimpses into modern folklore and how people interpret and respond to unexplained events. The correspondence shows how contemporary people move between scientific and supernatural explanations for things that happen in their lives, often embracing both at the same time. The letters show that magical thinking persists in modern culture despite scientific education and technological progress. Skeptical analysis of the curse phenomenon points to the lack of controlled studies and the selective reporting that characterizes stories based on personal experience. Critics argue that people have misfortunes whether they take petrified wood or not, but only notice and remember these events when they can blame them on supernatural causes. The curse may be a classic case of confusing correlation with causation. Still, the sheer number of reported incidents and how consistent the legend has stayed over decades suggests that the curse has achieved a kind of cultural reality separate from whether it's actually supernatural. Whether or not taking petrified wood really causes bad luck, believing in the curse has real effects on people's behavior and experiences. The psychological and social reality of the curse is undeniable, even if its supernatural claims remain unproven. The management challenges created by the curse legend include dealing with the constant stream of returned specimens and the letters from people trying to end their perceived misfortunes. Park staff must handle these situations with care, while keeping up their educational mission and scientific credibility. The curse has become part of how the park tells its story, while also creating ongoing work. The Escalante curse also raises interesting questions about the connection between place, ownership, and spiritual beliefs in modern American culture. The idea that taking natural objects from their original locations can cause supernatural consequences reflects deeper worries about harming the environment and how humans should relate to nature. The curse may represent a modern version of ancient beliefs about the sacredness of natural places. Recent developments have included attempts to study the curse phenomenon. The fact that mystery keeps showing up in Utah's landscape also tells us something important about the limits of knowledge and the value of things we can't explain. In an age when we expect to have answers for everything, these unsolved puzzles remind us that some parts of human experience and natural events stay genuinely mysterious. They suggest that our understanding of the past and even the present has big gaps that may never be completely filled. Maybe most importantly, Utah's mysteries show that wonder and curiosity are still essential parts of being human. The same urge that drove ancient people to build stone circles in hidden caves and paint moon symbols on cliff walls still drives modern visitors to seek out these places and think about what they mean. The questions these sites raise about purpose, meaning, and human creativity connect us across centuries and cultures.